The Art of Living is a short documentary that follows three small-town Iowa artists, and they use art as a platform in their small towns to make their small-town community better. This documentary is aimed towards the social media generation. There's a stigma that kids need to get out of their small towns and go to the bigger cities to be successful. We started with Cody Weber, a photographer out of Keokuk, Iowa. He used a photography project called Forgotten Iowa, where he was taking pictures of abandoned buildings in all 947 cities in Iowa. We found Rose Franson, who's an amazing oil painter. And she has an amazing project called Portrait of Maquoketa, where she painted portraits of everyone in Maquoketa. In that experience of painting those people, she was able to learn everyone's stories and really connect with the people of her small town. Gene is a metal worker in Dubuque. He makes sculptures, and his goal is to use sculpture as a way to build community as well. What appealed to us about each artist was that they were doing something different, and they were doing it in their small town, and they were able to make an impact on their small town with their medium. People don't really realize the importance of art and what it does to a community, how it can bring people together, how it can strengthen everything about a small town even. The role of an artist in a community is vital, I think. It's their job to tell the story of their community and to use it as a way to communicate to the rest of the world of their community in their small town.
It is a great life. It is a great life to be a maker. It is a great life to be an artist. What is it to live, truly? How do I serve? That made me move to New York. And then I moved back in order to paint my community.
I feel like they are representative of the community itself because they might be worn down a little bit, but they persevere. And why shouldn't we be proud of those things? I just find these buildings fascinating, and I'm so interested in history, and walking into history is just something that I feel like people in these small towns take for granted, and no one really looks into things. People look at things, but it's really hard for people to look into things. And maybe that's what a lot of it represents.
You know, art is, in my estimation, the visible soul of a community. You know, it can be judged, liked by some, not liked by others, but art and culture is the vibration that people are looking for. You know what's really special about my hometown of Dubuque is probably the hills, the ridges, the valleys, the river. The environment is really, really appealing to me. I think it's one of the most beautiful cities in Iowa. My medium is metal. And it's got the power of the message that I want to get across. You know, after working in a medium for so long, you start to interpret the world through your medium. Oh, I'd like to videotape that. Oh, I'd like to paint that. I'd like to sculpt this. Interpreting the world through metal, I'm aware. I'm seeing the beauty. I want to be able to capture somehow that beauty, and I'm inspired to do so through my metal work. I don't have an industrial background, but you know, I guess I really must love it because I spend a lot of time down here by myself, and really I think a lot of artists experience that. It sometimes gets very lonely, but when you get in the pocket and you're driving forth with the inspiration, time eviscerates.
I lived in New Orleans, I lived in Michigan, I lived in Chicago. All of it was a wash. Like, I could have not done any of that and it wouldn't have made a difference in my mind. Because to me, the only stuff that matters is the stuff that you share with other people. I actually started Forgotten Iowa in Kalamazoo, Michigan. So I went up there and I didn't know anybody, and at the time I was really focused on my photography. And I thought that my blind spot was like structural stuff, architectural photos, stuff like that. I was primarily a portrait photographer. And I thought, well, if I have this big blind spot, I should explore it. And then I moved back to Iowa. I decided to go to this town called Croton, Iowa, which is only about 45 minutes away, but I'd never heard of it in my life. And when I was there, I was taking photos of the town and the buildings, trying to work on that blind spot. And I had this thought that, like, if I didn't have this specific purpose to come here, I never would have done it. Like, I would have never came to this town. I just got this thought that, like, I wonder how many other towns are in Lee County. So I did all the ones in Lee County. And then I'm like, okay, well, that was fun. Why don't I go up a county? And then I started Forgotten Iowa.
I like to make work in series, and I've done a lot of different series. Portrait Maquoketa is probably the most known. It was shown at the Smithsonian and at the Figge. Parts of it were shown in Chicago and in Cedar Rapids, and we showed it in Maquoketa. That was one form of exploring community and the artist. How do I take all this stuff that I've been learning about being an artist in the world who's hoping to be a human being in the world? How do I take that and bring it to my community? How do you give them that quality of that experience when you're sitting across from your model and you both know you've met another person, right? And in a way you've performed this service of witnessing another person's life? That's when I realized I could actually paint my neighbors. That was how I got my big, huge idea to paint Maquoketans. It was like putting this idea of who and what can an artist give to their community, putting that up on the easel and letting the artist understand and explore it. The artist in me understand and explore it. I often say Maquoketa is a really great place to work, especially if you're a maker or a creator. It's off the grid enough for you to discover yourself, but close enough to the big cities for you to go in and get a little taste of what you might need for a spark here or a spark there, and then come home and have a lot of space in a really beautiful place to make something. Because you have access to this wider world through your computer, through your phone, through your thing, you can actually make a small town amazing. But we lose too many of our young people to the cities. Maybe everybody should go for a little bit, but don't forget to come back and see if you can actually make your real dreams for yourself come true. Younger people's energy in a small town is absolutely invaluable. Absolutely invaluable. But what I fear for them, the young people of the social media generation, is not having that space, that physical space like I had, right? Sometimes you need to learn who you are in a quiet way. And I feel like without that social media, that world, that computer world, that phone world will actually suck the life out of a lot of us. So how do you find that balance, right? It's the new generation question.
You know, we humans have a essential need to create, whether it's to create a family or a home or a shelter. Being able to make something it's accessible to anybody. And I think it's something that really we as humans need to explore more deeply, is what can we create other than just our wealth and our big fat carbon footprint. We all have it, you know, regardless if it's good, bad, New York or Dubuque, Iowa. Everybody needs to just go out and practice their skills and express with the world. You know, I see the younger generations with this longing to get out and experience the bigger world. I say go, do, get out there, get a job, but bring your influences back here, bring your talents back here, invest in your hometown, because there's always that yearning.
A lot of people that are here that are my age feel like they failed because they didn't get out. I'm not in Keokuk because I failed elsewhere. Even though in some ways I probably did fail elsewhere, it doesn't matter. I'm here because this is where I feel like I'm supposed to be. Why does it matter where I am? And why does it mean that I failed or anybody else failed because they're here? It doesn't.
You're supposed to move to the city to make your work, right? You're supposed to do stuff in big, important places before you're considered, what, a real artist? That's been a cultural thing for a long, long time, right? You gotta leave the rubes and go to the city. And this moving back from that is like we have to dispel the myth that it's a failure. I knew that being with the community was actually a real piece of art, actually. You never forget that kind of being touched by a community experience like Porch Mkokota, you know. But it was interesting because that really required my humanity too. And that was actually quite beautiful. Not that all of these other ones don't, but it was so obvious when you're working with another person and being in front of another person that you need to be a feeling human being.
Each of us has this opportunity to share and to build. Equally, we have an opportunity to tear down and to denigrate. I think it's incumbent upon each of us to get out there and live in a community to make it as rich and as vibrant and as interconnected as we can. You know, this is it. This is our turf. This is our land. This is our life. It's going on and it's going by. People say I spend time on art. I say I spend my life on art. I spend my life building community. It's something I've always done. I build community. Being a consumer isn't going to solve the problems that we have in the world. Neither is building a piece of art, mind you. But when people come around and talk about that art, they're not talking about hurting each other. They're talking about what is in common with them in the universal language of art. You don't have to build some marvelous whatever or paint something that's going to be a masterpiece. A community member that wants to make a more beautiful community can help somebody out. They can say hello to somebody. They can be kind to somebody. This is what we do. It's an art of living. It's an artful life. It's a presentation. It's how you keep your yard. It's so many aspects of everyday life that's accessible to every member of the community. And come and share and do, and let's make this place great and beautiful together.
I hope her story inspires a few of the best and brightest among you to see what you might do in your own hometowns. New York, Chicago, and LA don't really need you that much, but you'd be quite welcome in a place like Maquoketa.